CheeseHeavenTV, where cheese lovers unite. Today we're talking about one of the most famous cheeses in the world, Manchego. But here's a question most people never ask. Are you actually eating real Manchego? Or are you eating a Spanish-looking sheep cheese wrapped in clever marketing and a nice label? Because Manchego is not just a cheese from Spain. It is protected, it is regulated, it has history, strict production rules, and a very specific identity. In fact, this cheese has been at the center of legal disputes over labels, imagery, and what producers are allowed to suggest to consumers. So today we're diving deep into Manchego, where it comes from, why it tastes the way it does, how to recognize the real thing, and why some supermarket Manchego-style cheeses might have more to do with marketing than tradition. Before we begin, don't forget to follow CheeseHeavenTV on Instagram. That's where I post cheese facts, beautiful cheese photography, behind-the-scenes content, and ideas for future videos. Let me know which cheese you want covered next, which comparison you'd like to see, and which cheeses you think are overrated, underrated, or completely misunderstood. Now let's go to La Mancha. Manchego comes from La Mancha, the vast, dry, dramatic region in central Spain. This is not the lush, green mountain world of Gruyere. It is not the humid cave environment of Roquefort. La Mancha is hot, open, dry, and at times unforgiving. And that matters, because great cheese is never simply milk and salt. Great cheese is geography, climate, animals, and human tradition working together. In the case of Manchego, that landscape shaped everything. Historically, sheep were perfectly suited to this region. Cows require richer pasture and more water. Manchega sheep are adapted to the harsh conditions of La Mancha. They are resilient animals, and their milk is rich, aromatic, and full of character. This brings us to the first important point. Real Manchego is not made from cow's milk. It is not made from generic sheep's milk. It must be made from the milk of the Manchega breed. That may sound like a small detail, but it is actually the soul of the cheese. Because when you remove the breed, the region, and the traditional production methods, you may still have a good cheese. But you no longer have the same story. So what exactly is Manchego? Manchego is a pressed sheep's milk cheese. The curd is formed, cut, placed into molds, pressed, salted, and aged. The result is a compact cheese with a firm texture that changes dramatically as it matures. Depending on age, Manchego can be creamy and mild, nutty and balanced, or intense, dry, spicy, and almost crystalline. And this is where things become interesting. Many people think Manchego has one flavor profile. That couldn't be further from the truth. A young Manchego is soft, sweet, milky, and approachable. A mature Manchego becomes stronger, nuttier, saltier, and slightly spicy. Very old Manchego can almost feel like Spain's answer to aged Pecorino, while still maintaining its own identity. That's why saying I like Manchego is a bit like saying I like wine. Which one? Young, semi-cured, cured, aged, raw milk, pasteurized, artisan, industrial. There isn't one Manchego experience. There are levels. Let's talk about aging, because this is where most consumers become confused. Young Manchego tends to be smoother, more elastic, more buttery, and easier to enjoy. It's the kind of cheese you can place on a board, and almost everyone will like it. As it matures, the texture becomes firmer and drier. The sheep's milk character grows stronger. You begin to notice more roasted nuts, more salt, more acidity, and sometimes a subtle peppery finish. Then you reach the oldest wheels. These aren't simply stronger. They're more concentrated. The texture becomes crumbly. The flavor becomes deeper and more serious. At that point, Manchego stops being just a tapas cheese and becomes a cheese for people who genuinely pay attention to what they're eating. And here's the slightly controversial part. Many people who claim Manchego is boring have probably only eaten boring Manchego. At supermarket level, Manchego can be pleasant, safe, and enjoyable, but not always exciting. The real magic often begins when you taste a carefully aged wheel selected by someone who understands the cheese. That's the difference between saying, "This is nice," and saying, "Now I understand why this cheese became famous." Now let's talk about how to recognize authentic Manchego. The most recognizable feature is the rind. Traditional Manchego has a distinctive zigzag or woven pattern around the sides. Originally, this pattern came from the molds used in traditional production. Today, it is usually recreated using modern molds, but it remains one of Manchego's defining visual characteristics. However, the rind alone is not enough. A cheese can look like Manchego and still not be authentic. PDO Manchego. The label matters. Real queso Manchego. PDO carries official certification and identification. It should clearly state that it is made entirely from Manchega sheep's milk. So when you're buying Manchego, don't just look at the front label. Turn the cheese around, read the details. Look for PDO or DOP certification. Look for official identification markings, because food marketing is extremely good at creating emotion. A windmill, a sheep, a rustic label, a traditional Spanish name. Suddenly consumers think, this must be authentic. But authenticity is not a font. Authenticity is rules, and this is where the controversy begins. Manchego is so famous that many cheeses want to stand close to it. Some are honest sheep's milk cheeses from Spain. Some are genuinely excellent products. But if they don't follow the PDO regulations, they are not queso Manchego. And this is where consumers often become confused, not necessarily through deception, not necessarily through illegality, but through visual suggestion. Most shoppers don't have time to analyze every label. They see Spain, sheep, windmills, rustic imagery, and traditional branding. Naturally, they assume they're buying the protected original. Protected designations exist for a reason. They protect producers who follow the rules, and they protect consumers who want to know exactly what they're purchasing. This doesn't mean every non-PDO sheep cheese is bad. Far from it. Some are outstanding, but they should be appreciated for what they are, not mistaken for something they are not. Don't let packaging taste the cheese for you. So what should authentic Manchego actually taste like? The first thing you'll notice is the sheep's milk character. Not aggressive, not unpleasantly animal, but definitely present. There is a richness and depth that cow's milk cheeses usually cannot provide. Then come the nutty notes, almonds, hazelnuts, sometimes lightly roasted flavors. More mature cheeses often develop noticeable acidity. Younger examples may feel buttery and smooth. Older versions become firmer, drier, and develop a subtle spicy finish. But the best Manchego has balance. It shouldn't be only salty, it shouldn't be only strong, it shouldn't be only dry. The flavor should evolve. It begins with milk and nuts, develops into savory depth, and leaves behind a lingering sheep's milk finish. That finish matters. Cheap cheese disappears. Great cheese stays with you. Now let's talk about how to enjoy it. The classic pairing is Manchego with membrillo, also known as quince paste. And yes, it works beautifully. The sweetness balances the salt and richness of the sheep's milk. Manchego also pairs wonderfully with almonds, olives, rustic bread, honey, figs, and Spanish red wine. But here's my personal opinion. Don't hide great Manchego beneath too much sweetness. Young Manchego with quince paste. Wonderful. Aged Manchego. Taste it alone first. Let it warm up slightly. Don't eat it directly from the refrigerator. Cut a piece. Wait a few minutes. Smell it. Taste it slowly. Because this is where cheese becomes more than food. It becomes culture. And Manchego deserves that respect. So is Manchego overrated? Here's my answer. Average Manchego can absolutely be overrated. Great Manchego is not. The problem is that the name became so famous that many people stopped asking questions. They buy Manchego the same way they buy Parmesan, Brie, or Gouda as a safe choice. But the real question isn't whether you like Manchego. The real question is which Manchego you've tasted. Young or aged, raw milk or pasteurized, industrial or artisan, a mild supermarket wedge or a carefully matured wheel. That's the difference. Manchego is not just another Spanish cheese. It is a protected identity from La Mancha. built around the Manchega sheep, traditional production methods, and a flavor profile that can range from friendly and approachable to deeply complex and intense. And if you've only tasted the mild version, you may not truly know Manchego yet. So the next time you see Manchego in a cheese shop, don't just grab the first wedge you find. Check the label. Look for PDO or DOP certification. Ask about the age. If possible, taste a younger and an older version side by side. That's when this cheese becomes truly fascinating. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to CheeseHeavenTV, where cheese lovers unite. And don't forget to follow CheeseHeavenTV on Instagram. Send me your favorite cheeses, your future video ideas, and your most controversial cheese opinions. Maybe your suggestion will become our next cheese story. Until then, see you in the next cheese adventure.